Now,
This question for him.
yeah, but I think everybody's going to look in at him over time, so he gets all the attention as well. So we want you on your best behavior. We want to understand, because I do believe that this is something that may really shape business messaging, or at least let's not talk about business messaging, but really the use cases out there. As we say, let's not talk about APIs almost. Well, we heard what the APIs are. I hope we have the sessions exposing some of the information, making it as a tool, giving it as ingredients for other people to use and create something. But we have been using that in some ways. Actually, let's start with you, Stefan. You're just next to me. This is, we've heard there is a standardization process led by TM Forum, GSMA, and many others. As you say, they have a MEF as well. But this has been available for a while, right? Apologies for this has been available for a while. You have been doing it. Tell us about the status. Even before all of the standards, for quite a few years, you've been running it as IPification. What is happening with the security, the authentications, use cases out there, which are based on APIs like?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thanks for the question. So, I mean, if you ask me from my perspective and from my lenses, really good stuff are happening, and the adoption is there, and yeah, we are seeing that there's a lot of big brands starting to adopt, or they've already adopted, you know, in different verticals and etc. Which is different from some of the previous time when, you know, we were talking about Mobile Connect and some other initiatives. But yeah, in regards to the API adoption, I can see now it's really a perfect timing, where yeah, it's really there. So from a standpoint of integration and adoption, I think we can say that it's perfect timing and it's happening, right? Like, so from that perspective.
Well, let me ask you then, where are you with IPification specifically? Yeah. Where are you live, for instance? Where are these use cases available? If any of you would like to travel abroad.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we like to say, I mean, like some of the APIs that we've heard today, I mean, they're available across 30, 35, 36 markets already. So I think 74, 75 telecom operators are now live, at least with Number Verify and certain other APIs. And in terms of monetization, I mean, probably, yeah, in 10 plus markets, there's a lot of banks, fintechs, you know, major social brands, and networks that are using those APIs heavily. So from our perspective, yeah, we can see the adoption really happening.
Great. So it is out there, it is being used in different flavors if you want, but it's been used in multiple countries. Now, because this is a slightly, you know, focused on business messaging, SMS, let's talk to somebody that used to work until a few days ago on SMS. That's Eddie DeCurtis. Now, is you know, with Shush right now, which is another provider of these silent authentications or others, or so should I say, kind of. Right? You can tell us more. But before you tell us even what you do, are we talking about eating our own services? Is that going to be taking over SMS?
Well, I think they live together, at least for the time being.
Okay.
For the time being, they live together. I think you're seeing more and more, you talk to more and more operators out there, they're seeing a decline in OTP. You're seeing regulators enforcing no more OTP on banking transactions, et cetera. So you're starting to see that decline, right? I think it becomes, not that I think, it is going to become a good, better, best, right? So in markets that are very, very high cost markets and such, you're starting to see them moving away from SMS, right? And they're going to email or third-party authentication apps, or even, you know, to OTT. So you're seeing that shift happening today. So when I mean good, better, and best, you may have email, SMS, and then network attributes, right? So silent authentication, Number Verify, SIM swap information. So I think they coexist. Well, not that I think, they're going to coexist. And what it does is it also helps in markets that are not truly gold markets, right? You know, there's markets out there that everybody has network APIs attributes, right? But not everybody has the same stuff. So you're starting to see in markets that don't have, maybe one carrier has the best of service, right? One carrier may have a decent price on SMS, and one carrier may be super expensive on OTP, and they're just routing around it, right? So I think it's still going to be, to this day, I think it's going to be, they're going to live together and coexist, and as more and more carriers, and you get ubiquity. Why is SMS so successful? Ubiquity, right? If you get more ubiquity, you're going to see the more and more shift to network APIs and network authentication.
So I'll take on the last point as well, which is the more ubiquity, which seems to point it out at the supply side, if you want. And the last information we've heard here, specifically the big announcements, 12 operators coming together with Vonage Ericsson to provide these to hyperscalers, this information. So there is there's a lot of numbers. GSMA will keep us true on how many of those operators are now buying into that. Carlos, somebody that just joined, I think, the fray. I mean, you joined Unibeam recently, and in our calls, you already showed that you already studied a lot, because you were telling me that in 3 markets, is it correct, that all the operators are already covering the full market, and yet, do we see take up on some of that? Once the supply is ready, are the banks going and rushing for it?
It's a very important question, because mobile operators, since this is powered by mobile operators, are very good at believing that build it and they'll buy it. And VoLTE, HD Voice, and plenty of other solutions, I've proven that it doesn't really happen like that automatically. The industry is not waiting for what MNOs are building. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's not. So it's really important to see if what's happening is really fit for purpose from the customer demand point of view. GSMA advertise which operators are doing where the supply is for Number Verify, for instance, and other APIs from the GSMA. Number Verify and SIM Swap are in about 16 countries. Out of the 200 ITU ones and GSM ones, 16 of them have launched Number Verify. In the 16 countries, there's about 5 of them that are close to 100% coverage, meaning that all the operators in that country have launched Number Verify. There is Germany, there is Brazil, and Indonesia and other ones, but then the other ones that come after are close to 100%. So it's about 80% in Spain. 2/3 of the operators here, 2 of the 3 main operators in the US are offering Number Verify. So we don't really, there's already a lot of markets where there's not a problem of supply. We are close or at 100% supply, and yet there's not a lot of demand. Don't take my word for it. I invite you to test this out. Number Verify is the promise that you open an app on your phone, you put your login password, you click login, and boom, you're logged in. You don't get an SMS one-time password. There is no other authenticator required. You just put login password, you're logged in, or you even just put your phone number, click login, and you access it. So how do you know if there is a demand, if it's picking up? Ask yourselves. I live here in the US. I'm one of the customers of one of these mobile operators that offers Number Verify. I'm a customer of 4 different banks and credit cards, which are the main target for this Number Verify solution. Every single one of those asks me for an SMS or sends me an SMS, meaning they're not using Number Verify. So ask yourselves in the different markets, different operators, different countries you have you seen a change on your applications where you used to receive an SMS and suddenly you don't anymore? You just put your login password, click login, and boom, you're logged in. And not because you added Face ID or something different, just because there's something that happens on the back end that is different. If you have not noticed a different, then it's because nothing is happening differently. And what we hear is that although there's some traction, there's very little traction. And we think that it's because Number Verify technology that exists today, while it's good for some portions of the customers, there is a large portion of the market for which the technology is not fit for purpose, and then it's a different one is needed. I'm a bit biased when I say that, because that's what Unibeam offers, but it happens to be what we think about the market.
Great. Well, we'll come back to all of your offers, but I wanted to, kind of run very fast on the main topics we've seen. Some of the success stories we've seen, the potential cannibalizations, the real questions of how does it fit in the market, hence where's the demand behind it. But the trade union of all the things we've seen, the use cases are there. Authentications, identity, security. It really fits perfectly. What you do, Alex, are there, which is, how secure are we talking about that is? Comparison to the SMS world. I also mentioned that because, interestingly, we heard, as we mentioned on the call, I think ABI Research in one of their paper highlighted the potential issue, not on the technological security, but on the processor securities. Is, are we there? Have we finalized everything on the software side? So back to you, as the architect in chief. And I know you're coming from the SMS world, so this is slightly new for you. But what will be your first reaction to these?
The views I'm going. Okay, the views I'm going to express are mine. I'm not speaking for AT&T here. I'll have to say that. A couple of points. Yes, we're in OTP right now, and it's a huge revenue source, and it's technologically not ideal. There are, we've all heard the stories. I'm not going to catalog them, but there's clearly room for improvement. A lot of room for improvement here. Carriers are acutely aware of the revenue opportunities and revenue loss and gain opportunities here. My sense is things are happening. I'm not making any announcements on, or this has nothing to do with what's going on inside necessarily, but
Sure, yeah.
but things are happening. The SIM itself is a great trust anchor. And I'm not talking about SIM-based routing, which we have today with OTP. If somebody's able to get the routing either by swapping a SIM or whatever, hijacking the routing, that's not as secure as actually depending on the SIM. Using a SIM-based app, for example, that resides inside the SIM. With that SIM, there's a telco vetting process. There are often identities that are exchanged, hard identity documents exchanged, credit ratings. Carriers know things like, I'm on the call concurrently, well, somebody's authenticating me. It's a very strong trust anchor, which I think has a lot of advantages for strong authentication. The more elements, the more forensic elements you collect. Is it a prepaid account? Did they show a driver's license? The more, where are they? Where have they been? How long's the account open? There's a lot of information that a telco has, and the more information you have, the better that authentication is. So I think it's key to have as many forensic elements as possible. Now, getting them out and exposing them is, of course, a challenge. I think we're going to obviously have to deal with and collect customer consent in many cases. But I think it provides us with a rich opportunity to greatly improve to greatly improve the security. And I'm optimistic that we will be able to develop APIs that are uniform enough for them to be adopted and useful. The banks want this. That's clear. There's market demand out there, and there's a recognition, I believe, in the community that we need this. And I'm optimistic that we're going to get somewhere.
Good. So we heard four different, very different views. Now I'd like you to talk to each other because you all pointed out different things. Sometimes I think there's almost a commonality. I was saying between Eddie saying the SMS and the rest of the world will coexist. And what we just heard from Alex, it kind of seems to be going together. There is an enrichment. Forever, no. Well, long live to all of our solutions. But yes, you're right. We heard that some services are out there from Steve. But Carlos was saying, but where is the hockey stick, so to speak? Because some of these services are not picking up as fast. Well, let's debate that as well right now.
You're going to get regulated out. The regulators are going to come in and smack this down. I'm telling you, you're seeing it. I'll give you a great example. Singapore, shared responsibility. If a customer gets spammed or scammed, the bank or the fintech and the carrier are responsible to pay for it, to make that person whole. So that's shared responsibility. The U.S. government, by July 8th of this year, told every major operator they have to have a SIM swap policy in place. That's the first shot across the bow. And when the carriers all went to the FCC and said, we need some more time, the FCC didn't even respond. In other words, they had to go in front of the FCC and tell them what their policy was. Now, policy comes technology, comes services that they're going to need to. Now, the good news is AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, they have a SIM swap solution, but we have 60+ operators in the United States who just don't have anything, right? You're seeing more and more regulators. India, no more banking transactions over OTP, right? You're starting to see these regulators get fed up. A poor woman in Canada, Freedom Wireless, $190,000 wiped out from a SIM swap issue. The three biggest fraud cases for cryptocurrency stolen, they only happened 3 times, but it was $435 million done by SIM swap. So you're going to start seeing more and more regulations come around the world. I never thought in my entire life I would ever say I love the regulator, but you're starting to see more and more regulators get fed up because the customers are complaining, and they're going to enforce rules. SMS was never designed for security, and they're going to enforce rules to force these carriers to do more and more and bring on more and more platforms, such as what my friend has over here and others out there, myself and others, to really build a more trusted environment. And there's always, where the scammers are going to go where the money is. Like, well, why is there fraud? Because it's a multi-billion-dollar business, right? That's
as you mentioned, and we'll come to Stefan. I imagine immediately the fact that you have still an SMS OTP potentially with the SIM swap information. The two might go together. Who knows? But we're not here forever. But the additional putting of together of layered solutions with additional
everything works
security.
together.
But Stefan, does IPification? Back to my point: is there a demand out there? Are we really getting people?
Yeah, I mean, regulation will definitely drive the demand as well. But it's something what Carlos mentioned, and I told him on the preparation. It's really, kind of interesting thought that no one is talking about the demand, and I definitely agree with him on this one, the first part. But on the other part, whether there's a demand or not, there's definitely demand. I mean, from our perspective, we are seeing it. There's at least 100+ clients that are using network APIs today. What I think is a big problem, probably also for the people in this room, given that there's a lot of players that, we all arguably wants to get involved in the network APIs, but what I see, it's like very few players are actually involved in creating the demand. What Carlos mentioned, there's probably more than 16 countries. There's 30+ countries listed for Number Verify is now available in 70+ operaters, right?
GSMA only advertised 16, but maybe
yeah, they missed a lot of things. We'll ask them to update.
33.
But the thing is, the question you're saying, it's out there, but banks are not going to GSMA website to search for an API or search for the solution. So there's a handful of companies out there which I think are not doing enough efforts to actually sell this for whatever reasons, right? There's a lot of revenues to be made now with the SMS still, right? So it's their cash cow. So it's very hard to kind of switch their mindset to something new. Or it's just, it takes a different type of selling and creating the demand and probably creating a solution that we are saying here. It's not like someone wants to buy an API. You really need to understand what, whether it's a bank, social networks, betting, gaming company, etc., really needs, and just to sell them, kind of the solution to the problem instead of an API. So from a demand perspective, there's a kind of confirmed demand. I can say, at least from a monetization perspective from our side, and for us, network APIs are bread and butter. We don't have a fallback, SMS, RCS, and so on and so forth. So, but I hope there will be more players like ourselves and our friends here and etc. who are really, working on creating the demand, because the telcos, unfortunately, are not enough to just say, I have an API and just come and buy it. It just doesn't work this way. Even from an SMS perspective, it took a while to become, kind of like a standard that is today.
Demand creation, isn't there something we've heard before? And potentially the most used word today was education. So I'm not going to allow you to use it. But I can see how marketing these services potentially could be an important part of what we're doing. And the more we talk about it, the more, in my mind, and partly for these audiences, what's a comparison, again, between the processes, between an SMS verification, let's say authentications like an OTP campaign, and a telco API. So and I'll ask that to Alex, because if I'm an external enterprise and I want to use the two services that for me are the same use cases, do I go for two different and separated processes? Or is it the one single approach?
There are many options here. I think the most exciting potential for API-based authentication is passive authentication, where you don't have process-wise, the human is a huge weakness. And you can phish a person, you can get them to tell you what password was, or what one-time password was in an SMS, and that getting the vulnerable human out of that process, I think gives us a lot of a huge advantage over the current OTP.
Agreed.
That's one aspect. Companies are using APIs today. They're using aggregated APIs, and I think that's a well-established process. I think that when we offer a better API, they're going to go to it pretty quickly. The banks are losing so much money. I hear from them about it every day. The pressures are not, they're regulatory pressures. I think the market pressures are there, as well as the willingness to pay for something that's going to help cut losses. I'm optimistic. And it's not just technology, it's, getting the human out of the loop is a big part. I can't tell you how many times we have a vulnerable human in the loop.
I'll move to Carlos, and then we'll go to Eddie. So Carlos, is that a positive side for the demand creation, the fact that there are some benefits out there? Social engineering is not part of the equation.
So there is a demand in the sense that there is a problem to solve.
Yeah.
There's clearly a problem to solve. More fraud, it's only going to increase with AI, more impersonation, easier impersonation, lower costs for fraudsters to try at scale. So the problem exists, the demand to fix the problem exists. But it's not a demand necessarily only to MNOs. That's what I was trying to say, right? So you can say, I'm going to go to WhatsApp. And WhatsApp is now launching like a one-time password only to one phone, not just to every account you have WhatsApp on. You can go to passkey, it's free. You can go to digital wallets, which is what governments are pushing in many markets. So there is a lot of different solutions to address that problem. It's not just MNOs. The enterprises are not sitting for the MNOs to say, okay, tell me when you're ready, tell me what you have and I'll buy it. That's not their thing. So there is a race, not for the MNOs between one technology and another, but a real race between is the MNO going to provide it or is it going to be somebody else? I think that Jeff had a fantastic discussion just before, and I could argue that vCon could be the solution and not powered by the MNOs at all. So
Great selling point. Next
there you go. Stay for the next one. But my point is, if we look at what's offered today in the market, the essential thing is the use case. Today, an enterprise has been buying an API already. When they buy SMS, they buy an API. They don't send an SMPP thing link to an MNO. They buy an API from Twilio, from Infobip, from whoever. They've been doing that for years and years. So that there's nothing new there. But what they say is, it doesn't matter what my customer is, where he is, what device he has, I don't care. Here is an API, I send an SMS, everybody knows how to use it, get the SMS back, and that's it. That's beautiful, they love it. The problem is, it's starting to not get safe. I have a problem with that, then I need something else. But they want it to be as easy. And the technical solutions that we have today in the market, number verified, that we were talking about in this JV for MNOs, supply, etc., the experience on this number verify is it's seamless. You don't have a one-time password at all, but it doesn't work if your phone is on Wi-Fi. It doesn't work if you're traveling and you turn off cellular data. It doesn't work if you're traveling and you're buying a SIM travel and it is the carrier of the SIM travel that is carrying your data. All that doesn't work. And it doesn't work if you are logging from your computer. So if a customer calls the bank and say, hey, I think there is something strange here, because when I log to my computer, you send me an SMS. When I log to my phone, if I'm outside on the street on cellular, it's magic, I get logged in. But if I'm home and on Wi-Fi, then you send me an SMS again. What's going on? Am I being hacked? This is not easy. And what we hear from banks is, and I love this quote, is what they tell us is, I'm in the business of lending money. I'm not in the business of educating my customer base of 10 million users with diverse knowledge of technical experience on why this works like this, why this works like that. This is why I love SMS. It's one API, constant use case for everybody. It's easy. Whatever other solution I'm going to choose needs to match that criteria.
Eddie.
Oh, I don't need that.
No?
So,
No, get the mic. We'll record.
no, my mic's on.
Oh, your mic. Oh,
I have
sorry.
a mic. I have a mic.
Apologies.
I forgot I was talking. So there's one thing that you left out, SIM swap. There's only one place in the universe to get that information. One place. Apple doesn't have it, Google doesn't have it, the carrier has it. So saying the carrier is not involved, they have to be involved, right? And that is the biggest cases of fraud are coming from SIM swap than probably anything else, because they can wipe you clean in an hour. So the carrier has to be involved. Now, I can't speak for my friends at Infobip, I can't speak for my friends at Cinch, but I can speak to what I have seen at what Twilio did with the acquisition of the Buku assets and so on. So Twilio has a good, better, or best. The carrier has telco APIs, they offer it. If the carrier doesn't have telco APIs, or they give the brand the option to choose what they want. Do they want telco APIs, silent auth, SIM swap, whatever, they can get that. And if they want SMS, they can get that. And if so a good, better, best model, right? So, I mean, this is an emerging market right now, right? It's been around, and he's 100% right. APIs, HTTPS, for SMS have been around forever, right? So this has been around, right? But I'm talking about true network authentication, like what it's becoming, reminds me of where we were years and years and years ago with SMS, right? SMS was not, even though everybody had an SMSC, A2P and SMS was not ubiquitous at all, right? Then premium messaging gateways came out, and then Jamba launched and all that stuff, and then all of a sudden SMS became ubiquitous, and then it grew into this monster that it is today, with a $48 billion business, $19 billion on OTP, et cetera, right? Well, I think telco network authentication is still in that infancy, getting there, getting it moving. He's done a great job. Other companies out there have done a great job. You're bringing it to the forefront, right? I still think there's a massive supply problem, right? And that's what I'm focused on. That's all I'm focused on, right? Helping these carriers get to market with the business, because technology is technology. Anybody can build the technology. If you don't understand the business, and I'm blessed to have an amazing team around me that understand the business, built the business, literally ran it from an MNO side, a very successful one, that can take that education, take those use cases and privacy understanding and legal understanding and regulatory understanding, and put all those pieces together and deliver it to the MNO, so the MNO can launch the service.
Good, better, best can work, but we need aggregators.
No, 100%, I agree.
Yeah, we're in agreement.
Yeah.
Well, before I hand it over to you, I just want to have a quick check. Are there questions from you? If we have one, but no, we're not going there yet, because Stefan, you have about 1 minute
just
to do the summaries of it all before we go to three.
I like debating with Carlos. Maybe we can continue later on. But yeah, I mean, the solution, I mean, Wi-Fi issue is solved for the network APIs, at least for the native apps, which 99% of the banks and many other guys are using it. And the most important point is, will the carriers remain important, is more of a philosophical question, whether you would need a phone number as an identifier in the future or not. Because none of the other providers, aside from the carriers, are able to verify this piece of information, right? The phone number, right? That belongs to them. And as long as there's a growth in RCS, in WhatsApp, etc., which all depends on the phone number, I think carriers will play an important role in today's app world and marketing, etc. So yeah, I'm there to defend the network API side of things in the future, and I really think the future is bright from that perspective. So I wouldn't discourage actually anyone planning to get involved, and I hope most of you guys get involved, much deeper than what you are today. So that's my
just to add something, yeah.
For very brief.
Very brief. So I'm defending network APIs too. I think we probably need a round two. What I'm saying is that there's different technology to use the network. I'm just debating that the current technology is not enough. There's other enterprises that need an easier solution to get this information. That's all. And I think there's better, easier solutions.
And we had one question from street. We will have to be very brief. So not 2 questions allowed, but only 1.
Actually, this has been a fascinating discussion. So I probably have more questions, but we can take it all offline. So it seems like the bottom line issue is that it's an all or nothing problem, right? So brands or enterprises want to do this, and they, right now, like you said, they have one easy API to send an SMS, get the thing done, but now they want to switch for some of their subscribers to this network API, some not. And we only talked about the simple one, which is the silent auth and so on, but what about the more complex network exposures that are possible, right? So there's so many things here that...
Which ones? The ones that are a pipe dream?
Ooh, that's already an answer, but we will burn it. So very, very briefly, because we are over time,
Yeah.
anybody that takes that?
I believe there's a role for aggregators here, that
Yeah.
it's very unlikely that we're going to be able to get the Holy Grail for everybody overnight. Not going to happen. But if we can get 20% of the people, especially if it's the most vulnerable people, using these APIs, it's going to make a difference. We don't need instant adoption to start. We need somebody that's going to act as an aggregator, that's going to do the best they can with what they've got to work with.
Agreed. Agreed. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, just to add, silent auth, I know it seems simple, but it's probably the most complex API that needs to be done right.
Yep.
So that's like the basic, kind of foundation. When we are talking about the network APIs, you need to make sure you do this part right. And then on top of that, you can add all types of different APIs, whether it's, SIM swap, KYC, credit scoring, the advertising, age verification, and so on and so forth. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think this industry I can see this turning into RCS. I know.
We're just opening a very
hold on.
long discussion now.
Let me make this statement. I can see this turning into RCS if we don't do this right. If we continue down the path of adding NAS with network authentication, we are doing this a disservice, because it's going to cost the carriers millions of dollars in equipment to run a NAS platform. That's NAF and SCAF, and they still got 3G subscribers that they don't know what to do with, right? So you have multi-million dollars worth of platforms on something that doesn't have a business case, because there is not a doctor in the world that is going to do an operation 5,000 miles away because they think it's cool to do. So let's separate network authentication, which is a business. There's companies out there making money from it right now.
I will stop now.
and have NAS all under the same umbrella, but separate them. Because they're two different things.
So the world of APIs and some of the exciting ones we heard before are, we'll come back to it and discuss. Potentially, somebody say pipe dream. But I'd like to thank you instead here, Alex, Carlos, Eddie, and Stefan. Thank you very much for half an hour to give us more insight on what are important